Alright, so I've done it, okay? Don't kill me, don't blame me. I was only 8 when I did it, okay? Yes, I've watched a movie before reading a book, and I know I've broken my promise of never watching a movie until I read the book. But hey, that's life, you know? So stay tuned to find out what book made me break my promise. Hi again, welcome. So Sam's Reviews here, giving you another book review on one of the books that I've read. And today's book is none other than A Walk to Remember by Nicholas Sparks. Yes! I know I'm only late to the party, and to be frank, I've only read it like last week. Yeah, I know. But for me, A Walk to Remember has something special in my heart, and I can never get rid of the images coming from the movie. And I was sure that the book would be as beautiful as the movie. So let's start. As usual, I'm going to give you a little brief overview on the writer, the context, the content, and then of course my opinions and ideas on the book. So let's start with the writer, Nicholas Sparks. So Nicholas Sparks was born in 1965 in Omaha, Nebraska. And right now, he's still alive and he's 55 years old. When he was growing up, he had to move a lot with his family because his father was finishing graduate work, and that made them move a lot. And also made them live a very humble life. But that never bothered Nicholas Sparks. Instead, he said he had a wonderful childhood. Growing up and entering university, he had a full scholarship for track, so he was a very good athlete. But there was an injury that happened to him and pushed him to stay off track. So in that summer break, he had a little bit of curiosity and wanted to see how he was in writing. Hadn't it been for that incident, who knows? He might have never written anything, and we would have never had this chance to talk about A Walk to Remember or any of his other books. But he never pursued writing professionally. In fact, he was jumping from one job to another when he graduated. He even went to pharmaceuticals, sales, real estate. But he always had a thing for writing, and he did write 2 books before, and they did not get published. So he had a choice. He decided to write 3 books and try them with different publishers and see where it goes. And luckily, one of them was accepted, and that book is none other than The Notebook, which was published in 1996. Yeah, the famous Notebook novel. Nicholas Sparks has always been a big fan of writing. He has encouraged a lot of students with different programs and scholarships. But his stories seem to have something in common, which is death. And that might be related to the fact that both his parents passed away in such tragic manners. So you kind of see in all of his books that there is a hint or a big talk about death and passing away. Alright, so that was a little glimpse on the life of Nicholas Sparks. Now let's go to the context. So the 50s, 1975 to be exact, so almost to the 60s. Honestly, I didn't find the context this time for this situation very important for the novel, because I usually explain the context so that I put the novel in its time frame. But this time, the novel speaks for itself. It's about a story within time, within, let's say, eternity, but not within a specific context, specific time frame. So that's why, for me, this time, the context does not bring much to the novel. Alrighty, so let's jump into the content of A Walk to Remember, which was published in 1999. Yes, it's very old, I know. So the story begins with a man telling us of how he is now 57 years old, and when he was 17, so that's like 40 years ago, he and the town witnessed something that was remarkable, and it changed their lives forever, and especially his. Later on, we are introduced to this man, but when he was 17. So he's telling us the story when he was 17. And that man is Landon Carter. Now, Landon Carter, according to what he says, seems to be a little bit of a rebel. He's not a good student. He doesn't conform to the laws and rules. He hangs around with a bunch of his friends in the graveyard. So you see that in the standards of the 50s, that is not something acceptable. So that makes him a bit of a rebel in the register of the 50s. What we also know about this town that he's living in, that it's very religious. He says that there's a church everywhere you go, but the church that he and his family go to is the Baptist church. And the church that they go to is headed by Hegbert Sullivan. But Landon and Hagbert seem to have a very bad relationship because when he was growing up, he used to tease him a lot and really mock him with his friends. So there's not a really very good vibes going on between them. And he also doesn't attend church that much, or if they do, it's kind of like, you know, the rebel teenagers of those time being in a religious setting and all. And Hagbert Sullivan has a daughter called Jaime Sullivan. Jaime is very religious and she doesn't fit in with the group. And they don't even make her job easier because they also don't speak to her and they keep mocking her as well because she's old-fashioned with her clothes, lifestyle, and her father is obviously Hagbert, you see. So that makes her a no-no for the cool kids, you know. However, because Landon is not so good at school and he wants to get to university, he has to join in, or you know how in America it is, you have to have a good record or extracurricular activities. And he had no choice, it was either maths or drama club. So he took the obvious, thinking that it was very easy and simple to pass. He took the drama club. In the drama club, he crosses Jaime Sullivan. And from there, the story begins. I will not tell you what happens or what is the continuation of the story. I will let you discover what happens to the story, to the characters, and you just go on your journey. Alrighty, so that's pretty much it because I can't give you much about the story or else it's a big spoiler. And honestly, I can't do that. Also, the purpose of the story, because there aren't many events that are like a spoiling alert or something, but it's like a journey, it's like a walk. Here I'm using the title, referencing the title, but it's like a walk. You literally go through a journey, go through a walk to reach the conclusion or the ending of the story. So it's not really about what are the actions, what are the events, the characters. It's more of a self-discovery, self-exploration, and actually really loving the characters. I do want to focus a bit on some themes that are just like yelling at us from the novel. So obviously, and most obvious, because I'm a hopeless romantic and sucker for love. So the biggest theme going on in this story is love. Love conquers all, fixes us, heals us, changes us to be the best that we could be, especially if it's good love and with the right person. And this is why I told you that for me this story has set the path for my vision and my perspective on love. And it also talks about how love just breaks all standards and you never know how love happens. And that's why I particularly love romantic stories, because not when they're cheesy, but when they do have some character development and then there is that one click where somebody falls in love with someone else. I, as a lover of emotions and feelings, that is the one thing that I always look for in relationships. How do people fall in love with each other? Not only just romantically, but that obviously is very interesting, but even in friendships and other relationships. How do people fall in love? Of course, because it is about ministers and church and all, faith and spirituality. Another thing why I love this novel is because it is full of faith and spirituality. And yeah, some people would say, oh, that's so cheesy, that's so cringy, I don't know what. But I think faith and spirituality are very important to me. I try to implement them in my life as much as I can. And finding a love story that talks about faith and spirituality, it was really something new for me. And it's only after I watched the movie again as a grown-up that I realized how powerful love could be. And especially if it's put in the right path and if it's used with good intention and good faith, and it's a spiritual journey, and especially your love for the world and the Lord. Of course, we cannot go beyond the God's plan because the whole story is about God's plan, or what Jaime Sullivan keeps on repeating, the Lord's plan. For her, everything is happening for a certain reason, for a certain purpose or a goal, and we might not never know why that is right now or ever in our lives, but it must be there for a reason, for a certain particular factor, and we just have to believe in it. Of course, that is if you are a big believer. If you believe in something else, well, it's your freedom of choice after all. Okay, now it is my favorite part because it's the movie. The movie that was released in 2002, and it starred Mandy Moore and Shane West. That movie changed my life. I told you I will not be objective in my approach today because the movie touched me so hard and so much. Alright, so the movie is not so different from the book. Let's just say, first of all, there are some big changes. Let's say for the time frame. I remember when I told you the story of the book happens in the 50s, almost 60s. Well, obviously in the movies it happens in the late 90s, the beginning of the 2000s. So yeah, it's different, right? Also, the soundtrack used obviously was inspired from the 2000s. So there were minor changes. Some scenes were not involved in the movie. Some scenes were added to the movie to make it more dramatic in some sorts, if I could say the least. But here's the good point in both the movie and the book. They're both very swift and light. So when I read the story, it really passed like that. It moved so beautifully and slowly and smoothly. It happens also with the movie because you don't feel it. Like, it is 1 hour and maybe more, but you don't feel it because it's so beautiful. Yeah. So in the end, you don't find a sense of alienation or big differences. Obviously, I don't know, if you're a hopeless romantic and a sucker for good love stories, just read A Walk to Remember. And I might have committed a bigger sin because I have watched almost a lot of Nicholas Sparks movies without reading the book, and I just realized that. But hey, starting from now, I will try to read Nicholas Sparks novels before watching any other movie that is out there. So far, I've only watched maybe 2, 3, 4 movies by Nicholas Sparks, so I have a lot to read that I haven't watched, and I'm so excited for that. Yeah. Okay, so this was the book review for A Walk to Remember, Nicholas Sparks. If I have taken a lot of your time, I'm sorry, but this book is everything for me, alright? So yeah, have a good read and see you in another book review.